Welcome to another special episode of BACKCHAT. I'm joined by the boys from G2. We've got Mixwell and nukkye. Returning guest nukkye on the show as well, although you're sporting different colors this time. There's been a bit of a shuffle at the top of the European scene, and now you're playing for the enemy. What's going on there?
You have to jump a burning ship, you know, as it said. It's pretty simple.
Okay. It's starting off spicy already. Okay. And Mixwell as well. Thank you for coming on too. It's a pleasure to talk to you. You've been like a pillar of the European Valorant scene ever since it began. Well, I mean, even before it began, when it was back in like the closed beta, you've been doing all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah, it's been really fun, to be honest. I think G2 has been doing great in the last year, but we kind of sucked the whole year. Now that nukkye joined, seems that we're back.
I want to start like kind of talking about neither of your teams in a weird way. I want to start in a very odd place here, which is Mixwell, you were part of the #1 team in Europe throughout the whole of the Ignition series, right? You guys were the kings of Europe on G2. And then nukkye, you were on what I would consider to be the best team in Europe for the period of time after that, for First Strike, Masters 1, and then, you know, that incredibly close loss at just after that too. So what I want to get onto that is, was it weird watching Reykjavik from the outside, both of you, and seeing like Europe end up finishing in second place and then Liquid kind of not being there? Was there a sense of wishing that you had been there to be able to represent the region?
For me personally, yeah. It felt a bit disappointing, you know, because like NA played against, I mean, NA is really experienced like in that way. They had a lineup like Sentinels. They played like, all of them are CS players that played like tier 1, tier 2. And they played against TU players that are not even tier 2, you know, or like have no experience at all. So it felt like if we played against them, I think it would have been a different outcome to the final, or at least it would have been more closer than Fnatic did, at least from my point of view.
I think for me, that at that time, I didn't think we would qualify, to be honest. I felt in practice that we were not good enough. The results showed before that as well. We struggled a lot in qualifiers, so we didn't deserve to be there, to be honest. And yeah, that's it for me. I think they deserve to be there, and nothing else.
nukkye, when you're talking about the experience factor as well, is that something you specifically noticed from watching the matches that happened at Reykjavik? You felt like that was a big thing that impacted the games?
It felt like that on certain maps, it felt like these guys are getting just outplayed mentally and getting outplayed just like on small things that a normal like CS player wouldn't do, you know? Like patience on certain areas and whatever they were like constantly doing. I mean, they deserve to be there, to be honest. They played really good up until that, but when the LAN came, I guess the nerves also came into this to the play, and it felt like it on Fnatic's at least team, like nerves and whatever in the final showed, and they couldn't play as good as they played before that.
Is there some sense? Sorry, go on, Mixwell.
I think Fnatic played better than what I expected, to be honest. They had a lot of young players that never played on LAN, or they have really low experience, and they reached the final. But it's true what nukkye said. Even in our game against Fnatic recently, I feel like we didn't have too much practice, but these little details is what made us win as well. What nukkye said is the same for us.
Do you get the feeling now after Reykjavik, is there like added motivation for your team heading towards Berlin? Do you even think about that in terms of like the big tournaments coming up? Because I know that some competitors, they literally just think about the next game in front of them. But some people have a bit of a bigger scope of it, and they're looking forwards like, we need to be good for Berlin. We need to be good for champions, you know? And we're starting to get to that point where these things are not just on the horizon anymore. They're actually coming up fairly quickly. Is that an added fire to G2 for both of you?
For me, for sure. Every time I go to the gym, I visualize me like lifting the trophy. So,
right.
And I'm super motivated. So I'm pumped. I want to play now.
I mean, I agree the same. It's just like, but I look at it as like baby steps. You know, first it's the EMEA. We have to get top 4 there. Then it's Berlin, and then it's like, you know, like for the rest of the year, it's like that for me at least. But yeah. Of course, doing good in the events is like the the key and motivation for me too.
Mixwell, you said the visualization thing as well. I read an interview with you with the Washington Post that I found was extremely interesting. That you like this was I think even before G2 had started losing the Ignition Series events. It was like still when you were towards the end of the peak of G2. In the interview they were talking about you having like a personal coach and a sports psychologist working not with the team from the sound of it, but with you personally. It feels like you've very much like, I don't know, invested in infrastructure and thought processes to build out your game that a lot of other pros haven't. A lot of esports pros are very young and they play a lot of the game and they get very good at the game, whatever that is, whether it's CS, Valorant, whatever. And then the wider aspect of being a competitor, stuff that sports have been doing for a long time, they don't really tap into. Is that accurate for you, that you've gone that kind of slightly different direction with it?
Yeah, for sure. I've been after the period that we were winning everything, I kind of had a period of time where I stopped doing it, and I kind of felt like I was getting worse, to be honest. So I had a personal trainer. I have a personal trainer currently since the last 2 months. I had a personal coach that scouted people for me because I didn't have as much time to do everything. So what I did was search someone that can do it for me. Now that we have Lucas, our analyst, I don't need him anymore. He does it for me.
Right.
We didn't have an analyst before in our team.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do, because I do YouTube and I do stream, is delegate some things to other people so I could keep doing the content while I was really good at the game.
Right.
I wanted to do everything at the same time, and I still want to do it that way. I think that's why I can switch roles and play anything, because I watch a lot of games and I watch a lot of Valorant. So.
Okay, well, there's been a fairly complex process for this G2 kind of team to actually form in the first place. So before I crack onto like the G2 organization, I want to check back in with nukkye, honestly, because the last time we had you on the show, we were talking about Heretics, we were talking about kind of the 6-man roster and Nisao taking a break, that kind of stuff. And then this team that was, from the outside, looked like a rock at the top of the European scene has just crumbled into pieces. So can you talk to me a little bit about what even caused this disband? Because from the outside looking in, it seems like Heretics' implosion was the catalyst for all of these other European teams making changes. It doesn't seem like it was G2 throwing the bag at you. It seems more like Heretics had some internal conflict and that caused these openings for other organizations to pick people up. Is that along the right lines?
Yep, that's really close to it. It's just like, from my point of view, I look at this, the first strike, it was, I mean, I'm happy that we won first strike. I look at it, it came a bit too early to us, you know?
Right.
Like for certain people, that was like the motivational killer. It's like for them, it felt like they won Worlds. And they just started giving up, you know, they started playing less, they didn't play that much before or whatever. And it's just like, plus we didn't have an IGL, that was the biggest problem. You know, like Lowell didn't want to do as much stuff as he needed to do as an IGL. And I think he was one of the reasons why the team started falling apart. Because people stopped believing, like after the first strike, even with Ruben, people stopped believing in Lowell's calling. And it just was going downwards, and you can feel it, you know, after the second tournament. So I guess it was like a perfect time for a change, because I don't feel like there was any fix except without like doing changes to the roster or us going somewhere else.
Right. That sounds. It seems like you'd need a lot of confidence to break up a team that's doing exceptionally well. And I mean, to put it in context, you guys were still doing incredibly well. You'd still done really well at Masters 1, and I mean, the signs looked good for you being able to continue a run up at the top competing for titles. That to me either requires like a crazy level of confidence, like I couldn't just be at the top, I can be the absolute best with a totally different team. There's like a concept of better the devil you know, rather than trying to make a team and you don't really know like what the peak is going to be able to do with it. Did you just feel supremely confident in yourself to be able to make a team, or was there some other reason why you believed in the ability of being able to construct something even better than that former Heretics roster?
I think I can thank Oscar for that, because the first talk we had with him, and he messaged me the first time we had the call, and I mean, the way he spoke and like his motivation, and I could feel it, you know, just from that one talk. You can set like a really good example for the future as with like the person. And you know, that was the thing that was lacking in our team. Everybody wanted somebody else to do the work, you know, and I wanted people that would grind the game as much as I do, at least. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I talked with Oscar, he sounded motivated, and I wanted that, you know, for the future. And I couldn't see that in Heretics anymore.
It was like drive, ambition, and
yeah,
work
drive,
ethic.
ambition, and work ethic. Yeah.
Are those? Do any of those things kind of ring true with G2 as well, Mixwell, in terms of like being up at the top and getting? I guess it's complacency a little bit that nukkye's talking about after the first strike victory. I imagine it would be very easy to become complacent after winning the Ignition series over and over again when you guys are the kings of EU.
I think our biggest mistake was thinking that playing the way we were playing at the Ignition series was enough to keep winning, to be honest. Because our playstyle was not very tactical. It was really free-flowish. We didn't have things to back on when we were losing. And there was players that needed to change their playstyle that didn't do it. A lot of issues within the team as well. We didn't have an IGL. We got Zeke. Then Zeke got COVID before the qualifier.
Oh, I didn't realize
we
that.
played with, yeah, we had to play with Ozzy. We won against Heretics with a stand-in, so Heretics wasn't doing as good as
the downfall.
little wry smile on nukkye's face there. He remembers that game.
Yeah.
And then we lost against Fnatic, and we were eliminated then. It was a really rough time for me as well. I didn't know how to fix stuff, you know. For the first time in Valorant, things were going really well, and then we started failing in every qualifier. And I knew that what would fix us is having an IGL, because we didn't have one. And I was trying to do it while playing, while streaming, while I didn't have time for everything. I felt like overwhelmed.
Right.
And other people that were really dominating at the start weren't dominating as much later in our team, and we just went downhill really fast, and we didn't have a clear plan of how to solve it, so we went for changing.
After your recent success, or from like the advantage of time and the benefit of hindsight, are there things that you like can clearly identify that you should have done earlier that you didn't realize at the time, obviously, because you're in the middle of the problem? But are there things, you know, like bringing in a hard IGL instead of going for Zeke, who was, I believe Zeke was an IGL on his former team, but wasn't brought into IGL for you guys? Do you feel like those missed opportunities would have made a difference, or was it just a natural downward decline that needed a complete roster reboot?
I think Zeke was the best option we had at that time. There was not many options. He said that he had previous experience as IGL. We tried with him as an IGL, and in the end, I don't remember exactly what happened, but he didn't do it. So, to be honest, the timing was horrible, because we looked for an IGL for a long time. We tried many people, and Zeke was the best option by far, because Zeke is a great player.
Yeah.
He can do anything, and compared to the other players, he was just above them. Like, why would you not take Zeke? For us, it was better to take him and maybe see what happens next and keep him in our team, you know, because he was really good. So the timing wasn't the right timing. There's not many IGLs in Europe, to be honest. So if there's people watching here, be an IGL, you will have a job for the rest of your career, to be honest.
Yeah, for
It's
like
so
10 years
funny.
if you're a good one.
It's so funny you say that, because we had the XSET people in the studio yesterday doing an interview with them, and they said the exact same thing about North America. They sat there, Psycho and Aaron, and they said, there's just no IGLs in North America. If you're out there, become an IGL. And that's 2 interviews in a row, the pros saying the exact same thing. What is it about IGLing, specifically in Valorant, that people don't want to do it? Like, what is it that stops people from being either competent or wanting to have that role?
I think it's like being lazy. That's the first thing. Like most pros are pretty lazy, and on top of being IGL, you have to do a lot of things. Like if you don't have an analyst and you have to do all this stuff alone, or like a second coach and an analyst, you'll be watching demos or like going on the custom server the entire time, and your personal performance is gonna fall. And I guess that's the only thing, because everybody wants to be a star. That's the biggest issue, you know. I want to be the star player. I want to be the star duelist. I want to be the best, you know. But nobody thinks of, okay, there's being a good Cypher or Killjoy and being an IGL on top of that. That's like a niche that nobody understands. And I think I would have, like, in the start, I probably would have played something else if I knew that. Instead of like playing Razor right now, I would have become like a Cypher or like a Killjoy main. And I would be like, okay, if I'm good at it, like I'll have my job for like 10 years farming money, you know?
I mean, it is kind of funny hearing you kind of say about, you know, all right, yeah, it's so good to be the IGL. Not everyone has to be the star when you're literally the star, you know? You're like playing Raze and Raider and like Jett for your team on the Formula 1. Like you're the tip of the spear kind of player that's that everyone else is aspiring to be like. It's Mixwell that's taken the hit on this team more so than anybody, going from the duelist over to the sentinel role. But even you, Mixwell, have not actually picked up the IGL duties. I know that you were trying it for some time on G2, but again, like, did you just have too much on your plate at that point?
I think it was really hard to do everything at the same time. I think I did the best I could, to be honest. I invested a lot of time, but it wasn't enough. Also, I think playing Jett and playing IGL is super hard as well.
Right.
But yeah, I think I wasn't good enough to be an IGL, to be honest. And it's okay to say it.
Yeah. Do you think it's more difficult to be an IGL in this game? Are there more things that you have to keep track of? I mean, obviously compared to CS, that's the natural comparison. But are there more things to, you know, the ultimate status, the ability cooldowns? Do you find that that is part of the reason why people are less wanting to be an IGL in this game, is because there's just a lot of shit on your plate?
I think it's different than Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is so much slower that you have more time to think, I feel. In Valorant, if you don't react at the timing that you have to, for example, in a mid-round call, if you see a space that you don't call, like a mid-round call, I don't know how to explain it with a certain situation, but in general, because there's a lot of agents that do different things. When you see something, an opening, because the cooldown is down or something, you need to call it there because the cooldown is going to come back or whatever. Or you see 3 people on one side and you need to orchestrate how you're going to go in with the different people inside the team, etc. It also, for me, if you have a team with people that can do things by themselves, it's easier than if you have to micromanage everyone all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's the hardest thing.
If you have a team of people that are self-sufficient, being an IGL, I think it's easier.
Is that one of the things that you tried to accomplish with this newer G? In fact, I know that was one of the things, actually, during the Ignition series that made former G2 look very good. At least it seemed like that from the outside, was each individual player was quite proactive in terms of what they were doing. I didn't help for the long term, but it helped at the beginning of the game when people were still trying to figure things out. Is that something you really tried to do with this new G2 team? Get players that are very proactive? Or are you more relying on kind of the Coldament IGLing to be that big difference maker?
I think we made this roster with people that were smart players. We didn't look into only their potential to be a really like a star. We looked more into how smart they played the game and how they reacted to situations. For example, I watched nukkye the first tournament before First Strike. I don't remember which tournament that was. He was playing really well. Yeah, he was playing really well, but he wasn't as good as he is now. I think he plays much smarter now. He played like re-peaking a lot and winning the duels because he was better. Same as us back in the days.
Sure, yeah.
We were just winning by skill, not by playing well. That's why it might look from the outside that everyone is really proactive, but if you're proactive in a bad way, it's also really bad.
Yeah,
sure.
That's what happened after, when people got better. So you need to evolve as a player as well. You can be proactive as much as you want, but you can also throw the game by yourself if you're doing stupid stuff all the time.
Yeah. I want to talk about your shift, Mixwell, in terms of your role on G2, because you went from being a player that I mean, we were talking about it. You had a lot on your plate. You're doing all of this extra content stuff as well. And you're also playing the entry role for G2. That's what your prior role was. You were playing a ton of the Jett. In beta, you'd played Viper, so this is in somewhat like a return to that kind of situation. But you've also now been picking up the Cypher, the Killjoy, that kind of stuff on top of that as well. I want to, instead of talking just about the role swap, though, I want to talk a little bit about you playing duelist too, because in some of the games that you streamed, which I appreciate that, by the way, the fact that G2 was willing to stream comms in a bunch of their games too. It was a really interesting window into a team. In some of those games and in some of those moments, it felt like your decision making was like a little bit rushed when it came to the duelist role, or there were mistakes maybe because you felt like you had to take opportunities when you were attacking a lot of the time. And when I was listening to the communications after you streamed it, there were times when, I don't know, it was almost like apologetic, like you felt like you had a lot on your shoulders and you weren't able to accomplish it in some of these games where you hadn't performed up to your peak on duelist. Is that me just reading too much into it, or was that part of the struggle of that role on the team at the time?
I mean, it depends. I think I had a period of time where I was playing really well, where I didn't have any problem playing duelists. But after people got better and more tactical, it's hard to focus on yourself and focus on everyone at the same time. Tell them what you think it's the best thing to do, especially when you're losing the game, because people start to be quiet and you need to kind of be the leader while you're going in first, and you have to have good aim, tell people what to do, all of this at the same time. When I think my level drops because I can't do everything. I think after that I realized that I can't be the IGL. I need someone to do it so I can focus on myself more, because I can't do everything, like I said. And switching to the duelist or flex, because it's not only Sentinel, I'm playing Sage and Sky as well.
Yes, yeah.
Switching to more of a flex role, it was also because keloqz was joining in. He's a really good Jett player. He's 18 years old, and I told the team that I wanted to let him the Jett role because he's 18. He wants to become a star. He's really hungry, and I'm 25. I already played 10 million LANs. I know how this works, and for me, I prefer to win and let him become the new star in Europe. I don't care, and he's doing a great job. So I think it was a good choice.
Part of
At the start, I didn't want to. At the start, I didn't want Mixwell to play something else. I was
really?
This guy's one of the better Jetts. Like, why would you let this inexperienced kid play it? And then I guess he proved. I mean, like, first day of frag, he just goes 30 bombs on Killjoy and Cypher and Viper and whatever. And I'm like, okay. I mean, the first 2 days at least. And I was like, okay, he can do that. Like, I don't care. He can do whatever he wants, you know? Yeah. And I guess it's also like I want to explain, like, he's like the last like wall of the team, you know, like he can like, but Jett, I feel like you need to dash in, and a lot of times like a smart player like Mixwell can win you rounds. Like if you saw against the games against Fnatic, he was winning us rounds because he was lurking correctly or taking the timings correctly, not like an experienced player, like, you know. So I feel like that's a better role that fits the team in the long term a lot more than him playing Jett.
Right, because that wasn't supposed to be the original plan, at least from the outside it doesn't seem like that, because you were originally keeping Pith on the roster as well, and he had been playing the Cypher Sentinel kind of role for you guys for forever. And when we were talking about the roster mix-up on the show, we had a conflicting opinions about that too, because it did seem like you guys could benefit from a bit more of a shift up, but Wyatt, who co-hosts the show with me as well, was bringing up that a lot of when G2... the former roster was at its best, it seemed to revolve around Pith's setups and information and how he was playing Cypher. Was that a difficult decision for you to be able to go from, we have 5, we have 2, or now we only have 1 player from the former G2 roster that's playing? That seems like almost letting go of the final piece, the final core of that old team.
I think Jacob, I know what he's capable of, but when we did this new roster, he wasn't feeling, I don't know, the feeling of the rest of the players or something. He was really underperforming. And when I mean underperforming, I mean it like really hard. He was playing much more under his usual level. He wasn't talking as much. He had like a mental block. So he himself said that he wanted to bench himself to be able to regain his level back and grind ranked and like kind of find
Get back to
himself again.
shape.
Yeah. So it wasn't only that he was playing bad. I tried to help him as much as I could, to be honest. I was talking to him and I was trying to make things work, but it didn't work anyway. And in the end, he felt like the pressure was on him and he wanted to stop, because for G2, we have 0 points in the tournament, you know, in the circuit points. So Carlos wants us to go to Worlds and win Worlds. It's not, G2 is not a normal organization. You need to be the best team in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the pressure is on you, and if you're not playing well, you feel it much more than if you're playing in another team. And I feel like Jacob was in that situation, and even if I tried to help him, it didn't matter. And he benched himself, and then we looked into new possibilities.
Is that something that the rest of the team was feeling as well towards the end? Like at the end of the former roster, the pressure coming down from kind of the organization, the fact that you have the biggest org in Europe, kind of breathing down your neck, wanting results?
Not to me, no. I think at least not to me. I can't talk for the others, but it wasn't getting me for sure. I am used to it already, and there's a lot of people that watch me and that follow me. There's a lot of eyes on me, so I'm used to it. I streamed every tournament with my stream on. I fucked up in front of 20,000 people several times, and I did really good plays as well. I'm not conditioned by how many people watch me or the organization or whatever. I don't care about that.
Let's talk about keloqz then a little bit, because he's like you said, almost the opposite of you. You've been through a bunch of different shit. You're extremely experienced. You've been, like you said, playing with 20,000 people watching your stream, not phased by any of it. He's a very new player, and he's playing quite a pivotal role for your team. What did you see from this guy to make you confident to put him in a position of that entry role where he's going to have game-changing moments for your new roster moving forwards? What was it that you saw in him?
His energy was so high. His energy is what I think he's so hungry to win. His energy, he screams every time we win a round. He's motivating everyone around him. He changes the vibe of the team as well, because we have really serious players, so it's good to have someone like that. And also he's fearless. He creates a lot of space.
Just doesn't care. He just goes in. He's a bit trigger happy and undisciplined at least for now, but he's fearless. That's a really good thing to have, you know. If somebody's not going, you just first one in, just dashes in, or whatever he needs to do. So it's good to have a person like that in the team.
Do you feel like he makes the game a little easier for you, nukkye? Because now I mean, when you were playing on Heretics, you were kind of that guy in a lot of situations. You were being the hard entry sometimes, but now you've settled into a bit more of a secondary role where he's the one making the space and you're the one going in cleaning up the frags. It doesn't always work like that, but that is a little bit more of how it functions. Does that create more space for you to do your work?
Yeah, it became a bit more easier to play. I feel like I'm trying to find my role in the way I want to play. It's not like I still want to lurk a bit more sometimes, but like entering, following him into the sites is really good, you know. Like I realized I'm really good at refragging, which I didn't know for a long time. I was good at entering at the start, but it's still like in this game I'm testing new roles, because like at the start I wanted to be an opper in this game, but then they nerfed the op, so I was like, it's a new page for me fully, and I'm learning still.
One thing I wanted to say as well is that he's really humble. You know, he listens to the people within the team. He gets criticism really well. He asks for people to help him. Yeah. He's not a young player that has a huge ego and thinks that he's the next big thing. He's really humble, and I think that's really important if you want to become a great player.
And rare to find nowadays, at least.
What do you think his potential is? Like, do you think he's like the next big thing? You think that he could become, you know, the star of Europe, up there with the other people?
I think he can become one of the stars of Europe.
Okay.
He needs to improve. in being smarter sometimes and have more experience. When he has that, he's going to be insane. Because his individual skill is insane. But he needs to chill sometimes because he gets into the rampage mode where he kills 1-2, he keeps going and throws the round sometimes, you know what I mean? Re-peeking when he doesn't have to. Or when the game is really slow and the enemy team is waiting for him to peek, he needs to think about how can he give us ground without dying, getting a deep angle, for example, and having the control of this part of the map without having to go forward to get a pick. He can play more like the Vice in CSGO or something like that, you know?
It felt to me like it felt to me like he was a little bit of an inexperienced player that had certain maps that he just really understood how to play. He seems, every time I've watched you guys on Ascent recently, he pops the fuck off on attack side. Like he's just, I don't know what it is about that map, but it feels like keloqz is just unleashed whenever he plays specifically Ascent. And I mean, I haven't played the game at a top level. I don't know whether that's a common thing to have like a map where you just get it in your bones. But it really feels like that is, when I watch him on Ascent, I'm like, yeah, this, if he can replicate this everywhere else, he's going to be insane. Is that something you've noticed as well, or is that just it just randomly happened to be the 2 games on Ascent where he popped off?
He says it's his map every time we play it. He's like,
no,
it's my map. It's my map. Like before it starts, it's my map. Now I drop 30. Trust me, guys. Trust me. Just let me go. Let me play my way. He doesn't want anyone to tell him what to do.
It's like, nukkye, chill this time. It's my time. Like time to get 30 kills or something like that on Ascent. Like with the last map we played against, who was it? Fnatic, I think. No, we played Fnatic on Ascent. Which was the team that
or
we played?
Vitality
Was like, bro, this is my time. Like, I'm gonna fucking destroy these guys. And that's what he said. And he's also really good on Haven. Like, he's really aggressive on that map, and he gets a lot of space. But sometimes, yeah, like some flaws of like just being a bit more patient or disciplined comes into play with him.
I want to talk about your qualifier run then. So this roster's been assembled, and the first time around, when you were still playing with Pith, you end up losing to Team Finest. So, okay, there's a bit of a roster rejiggle. keloqz comes in, and now you're on your qualifier path. The first team that you ran into of, like, big note is Fnatic, and you ended up running into them multiple times throughout your qualification run as well. They just come off the back of Reykjavik too. What's your thought process going into a game like that? Because that seems like a true test of this roster, is how you go up against the team that's ended up being, I think, considered the best team in Europe of the previous tournament, even though it was Liquid that ended up winning it, but Fnatic went a lot deeper at Reykjavik, so I think most people were saying that they were the better of the two. But that's, if you're going into that game, are you exceedingly confident, or were you kind of wary and optimistic but a little cautious about it? What was the feel?
I think we were cautious, but we were really optimistic. I felt like we could win for sure. I'm really confident in this roster, to be honest. I feel like we have everything we need. And even if we had no time to practice, we were playing really well in scrims, and we were trying stuff, and it was all right. It wasn't amazing, because we relied a lot on individual skill this tournament, because we didn't have as much strats. So for me, Fnatic didn't play at the same level as Berlin. They changed the bind comp as well, which I don't think it was a good idea by them.
You're not a fan of the triple smoke comp?
Yeah. They went with the breach and triple smoke, right?
Yeah, which is unusual. I mean, that's very unusual.
Respectable, but unusual.
They played really slow, and that gave me a lot of space to play with Viper, and I just destroyed them attacking. I don't think that's gonna ever happen again, though, because they will do their homework and we'll have to change how we play. But it's good that we have the players we need to be able to call at any time, because it wasn't only Koldamenta calling that game, it was everyone. And that's what happens in every map, to be honest. If we see information, anyone can call, and that's something that we probably lacked before.
Yeah, that calling structure is interesting to me, because when we've had Bone called on the on BACKCHAT, and we were talking to him about the structure of ACEND. This was before, when he was playing with Koldamenta, and he said Koldamenta was one of those IGLs, you know, like a Boaster or a Shazam or a Angel or whatever, that does a lot of homework and wants to be like a heavy caller for the team. Is he got the same kind of role now on G2 where he's, doing this large amount of work beforehand, prepping stuff, bringing it to the table, or are there other people on the roster that are helping share that burden?
I think you go.
He does a lot of the work, but at the same time, I feel like we have a bit more space to call. Like, at least we're getting into that shape that everybody gives certain calls that they need to give. But I think it's going to take a bit more time for everyone to like fully unleash like the micro calls that it's needed to have in a team, Because we like, sometimes it's, even for myself right now, I feel like I'm a bit locked up in my head individually. Like, I wait for him to give a call, on what I have to do. And I'm starting to unlock it slowly, with more the prac I get. And we're gonna go to bootcamp. I think that's gonna help a bit too. Is to unlock, like, I guess everybody in the team is the same. Sometimes a bit too quiet, so I think he does a lot of the calling, but at the same time, we still are unlocking the small pieces that we need to regarding calling,
You have the same thought process on that, Mixwell? That feel the same from your point of view?
I think the people that talk the most on the team are Koldament and me right now, by far. I think the keloqz still is too young to do that, and he needs to get better at that. Nukkye has games where he calls a lot when he's feeling it. He's dropping 30, and he also has games where he's dropping 35 and he doesn't say a word, to be honest. It's weird.
Right.
He's like playing, killing 3, and he doesn't say anything because he's in full like in his bubble.
Right.
And then Avova is like a soldier. He does what we tell him to do, and I feel like he's really smart. And I kind of want him to become another caller for the team. And I talked about this with him a lot, and he knows it already. So if he steps up in that department, the team is going to get much better as well.
Can you feel a big difference in some of these qualifier games when things are clicking? When you're a new team, I feel like there's some games where you get this glimpse into what the team could be. And there's some games where, obviously, because you're new, things fall to pieces and there's mistakes and stuff like that. Were there certain games across your qualification run where you were like, this is what we could play like in the future? This is us playing at, peak potential. Was there any game that you can point to where you had glimpses of that?
I wouldn't say a whole game. I would say a few rounds.
Right.
Because we did a lot of mistakes during the qualifier, and we can play much better than that. But there was rounds where you win impossible situations over and over again because you have good communication, good understanding of what you should do. Reactions, really fast reactions where no one is calling it, but the guy is already moving towards what you were thinking, and you didn't have to say anything. So all that stuff is what creates synergy inside the team, and I think the team could become an insane team, to be honest. The best in the world. I still think that we can win the Worlds. So
I agree. It's like I think it was, who did we come back against? After that, like, comeback, I think it was Vitality, maybe? We came back on one map, and it was like, at that point I realized the team has a really good mentality for the future, I'm not sure if it was Vitality. It was one of the teams that we came back against. And then
Vitality and Icebox, maybe 12-9 down.
Yeah, I think so. We came back and won in overtime, and it proved that, like, okay, we have like team cohesion and we can actually do things. Also, like Oscar said, like, people moving around. Yeah, I think this was this game. It's like how the team moves around. Like, you don't need to call everything for people to do the right thing, and that's like really rare to find, because like in other teams, like in younger teams with less experienced players, like everything needs to be called. Every single thing you do, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this round, and sometimes it's just like intuition and like reacting to your teammate, which is kind of rare. But sometimes it's like it doesn't go as planned. But I guess we could fix that in the future.
One of the next games that you had that was surprising to us was the game against FPX, because FPX in their former games had looked pretty sloppy. Like, it's a weird time, I feel, for that team, because they've been during the Ignition series, it felt like they were so close to being the best team in Europe, and then every other time it's felt like they're so close to being the best team in Europe, and they just never do it at any point. But during your game against them, I think everybody that was on this show was expecting you guys to be the better team the first time around, because FPX had looked pretty lackluster and you had really impressed us in your win over Fnatic. Was that first game, the first time around where you lost 0-2 to them, was that
mistakes on your part? How do you explain the poorer performance against FPX and then the rebound against them the next time where you beat them relatively convincingly afterwards? I think it was 2-1 the next time.
From my point of view, I instantly realized it's gonna be a rough day when we did the warm-up game before. I could instantly feel something was off today, you know, like some like bad movement in the team or whatever, like something was totally off. And the next time we played against them, everything was like back to normal. And I guess that was the reason of it, you know, like we're fully off and not even focused to the point where we could be, you know, playing at the level we need to be playing that day. And I guess that's a part of being a new team too. Like not knowing how to start with like the first gear and whatever and kicking it the second one when it's needed. So that's from my point of view. I know maybe Oscar has a different opinion on it.
For me, it was the fact that keloqz was still doing the last exams, and we had 2 days off before the match. We didn't practice a single stream, and it kind of destroyed our routine of training every day. And we went into the FPX game with 2 days without playing, and with a completely different routine, with people doing whatever they wanted, play ranked or stuff like this. And when we went into the game, we were really off. Communication was horrible. We were not talking. We played really bad that game. Like our worst game since we did the team by far. And FPX played really well. Xiao was amazing on Jett.
Yeah, he was. That was the first game I think where they tried Xiao on Jett. I think he was. I think he was still playing his former role previously. Was that a surprise for you guys when you see him? I mean, obviously he played like a star role on Party Pirates ages ago, but he's mostly been playing a pretty supportive role up until recently, where they've been trying to run him as Jett open relatively frequently.
I think it was surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say the same thing.
They do seem like they've got a lot of looks.
He's really good though. Like everyone knows that he's really good, and a lot of people thought that he was getting wasted. His potential was wasted playing solo. To be honest, his aim is really sharp. He's really clean. He doesn't overextend. I don't know how his comms are because they speak in Russian or in English. I don't know, but I've never played with him, so I have no idea. But his game is solid, and Jett is. Yeah, it's consistent, and Jett is completely broken. The agent is broken, so he's gonna, of course, pop off.
I love that every pro we talk to, without fail, considers Jett to just be a busted character. I mean, you two have both played her in the past as well. Is it? Do you feel like she requires a nerf, or is that just a fact of the game? Just there is a character that's broken, and that's you just play around it.
Thing is, I don't know how to nerf her without converting her into a useless agent, to be honest.
Right.
Like, you can go from being OP to being really bad really fast. So it's hard. Also, the operator is so bad that only Jett can use it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I don't think they will do anything, because otherwise no one is going to play op.
Yeah. Do you did you enjoy playing Jett, both of you? Like, is it fun to be playing the busted character?
I loved it. I loved it. Like when you're feeling it, you win the game by yourself. Like, it's so stupid.
For me, it was a bit different. I feel like to play really, really good Jett, I feel like you need a really good team around you that understands how the game needs to be. You know, like if you make a stupid play on Jett, which is happening a lot, to be honest. Like you take space, you think the space taking is good, and then you die, and you have 4 baboons in your team that don't know how to take space. It's not gonna end well, you know. Like you're gonna die, you're gonna int every single round, and your team doesn't know how to fix the gaps. You know, that's gonna be hard. So for me, like it felt like Jett, you still need like somewhat of a decent team, and of course the daggers are broken as fuck. I feel like they should nerf the daggers somehow to increase the skill gap, because anybody can spam with them and get a headshot or right click a bit, and you know, I still feel like a bit.
Make them a slow moving projectile. That'll fuck her up.
No, I think like mid-air maybe. I mean, the nerfing mid-air shouldn't be a thing, because that destroys the agent. But like when you're walking on the floor, I think there should be like at least some, like you have to fully stop to hit the right dagger. I mean the dagger 100% or whatever, like the stopping and shooting mechanic.
Right. Yeah.
A bit more on that agent instead of just spamming the daggers and hitting everything.
I do want to get into your later games in the qualifier though as well, because you were thoroughly tested by Guild towards the end. Who I mean, I feel like Guild are a perennially underrated team in Europe. People never give them their appreciation. They just go by the wayside. People are like, yeah, they're okay, but they're not going to win anything. And then they do, you know, they put up some good results. They've made deep runs in a number of the past qualifiers at the very least. What was it that challenged you so much more when you were playing against Guild in that? I think it was a BO5, right? I think it was like a 3-2 win. Compared to your games against Fnatic, FPX that had just occurred. You managed to get the repeat win over Fnatic. You rebounded with the revenge win against FPX. And then it was actually Guild, it looked like, that challenged you guys the most before you came into the grand finals. What was it about this game that ended up being difficult for you to be able to get the win?
I think they don't play as tactical as the other teams, to be honest. They are also a team that free flows a lot, and we were playing kind of the same way. Both teams, everyone was talking, I guess, in their team as well, and it wasn't a game where you could read what was gonna happen easily. It was harder than the other games because there was a lot of changes. Yeah, random stuff happening. I guess it's normal because Draken came back for that qualifier as well, so they didn't have too much time to practice with him. But it was a harder game. It was much more of a fight in like a street fight more than something clean to watch, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we just watched that round where Yassine's full blind and so is Mixwell, and they just pass each other like ships, and Yassine just passed down into hell. Yeah, is that one of those games where you look at it and you're like, we are capable of a lot more than this? Is that the takeaway from a game like that?
Yes. And they are as well. I think both teams after the match thought the same thing.
Right.
That was a horrible match.
It's a weird one as well because you both made it so deep. So what does that say about the other teams that weren't able to get up to that level? Is Europe looking sloppy at the moment?
No, I think Europe is looking better than ever.
The most competitive I think it ever was. I think like there's so many good teams that can upset everybody, you know, like I feel like it's growing, and every single month or like every couple of months I feel like there's a new team assembling that compete against the top teams, like at least individual skill. You know, there's some new players popping off from ranked or whatever, just assembling like a mix and trying to scrim, you know.
Yeah. I want to get into the finals because ACEND look ridiculous right now. We've been hyping them up on the show for a while too. Obviously they were a great team before when they were playing with Koldamenta, and then they've added Zeke, who was previously playing with G2. So there's this weird incestual shuffle going on between the top three teams as you all just exchange different pieces around, and they've come out of it in a weird way because they don't have that IGL player that was that at least when we talked to Bone Cold, they were giving a lot of credit to Koldamenta. Like, he's the brains behind the team, he helps us play, etc., etc. And Zeke seems like he's added a lot more firepower, and Bone Cold has been the one that's taken over the IGL for that team. They look like a scary fucking roster to go up against, though, because the firepower across the board is just mental. Is that felt when you're in the server with them? Is that the takeaway that you get from playing against ACEND and kind of getting rocked in a number of those maps? The last two were close, but the first... Wait, how many maps did you play? It was 4 maps. So the first 2 maps were pretty one-sided.
Yeah, they were. I think the first 2 maps we played horrible, to be honest. They played well, they played solid, but we were playing really bad. Again, like against FPX, our communication was really bad. I also feel like when they get it rolling, it's hard to stop them.
Yeah.
They are a team that relies on momentum a lot. If they have a really good start, they will destroy you. And they got a really bad start in the other 2 maps, and we should have won Haven as well. It should have went into map 5. I think both teams have huge firepower. The thing that really I feel like CNET is probably the best player in the world right now. Probably. keloqz needs to get better at playing smarter against CNET, I feel, because CNET tries to do a lot of stuff that can be countered if you play smarter. He's getting away with a lot of stuff that he will not get away with in the future. He's exploiting a lot of flaws that we have at the moment, and he will not be able to do it in a month or so. So the next match against ACEND is going to be much better much better to watch and much better for us, I feel.
It's the second time I'm facing them without getting proper preparation, and I'm a bit sad, you know. It's like always this close. I feel like we started coming back in the other maps, but we made like some small mistakes, and it felt like the first time I played them, you know, even with Coldamenta, the game felt really close, and I felt like if we actually prepared, because we didn't have much time with Rubino back then, we had like a week of practice or like 10 days or something like that. I think we could have won if we actually prepared, because CNET is like, he's really good individually, but it's like if you watch the games, you can easily counter him to a point where like he couldn't do anything. And I feel like if you shut him down, the team, I mean, they have really good individuals, but I feel like it's going to be harder for the other guys to pop up as much as he does in the team to bring up the numbers, is from my point of view.
Sure.
I mean, even if you try to shut him down, for sure he's gonna have great moments because he's a great player. But he not in a way where he did against us the last game where he dropped 90 kills or something. He was getting away with a lot of stuff that shouldn't happen. And he knows it. I'm pretty sure he knows it as well. And if he doesn't know it, then he has a problem. But I'm pretty sure he does.
You think that? I mean, that is a classic thing that you can do with Jett, though, right? You can push the limits and test, just limit test essentially in the game and try and see what you can get away with. And like you said earlier, you can sometimes just win a game by yourself. Is that the key to beating ACEND? Just shutting down this guy?
It's not only that. There's more. But it's an important part for sure.
50% of it, I think, to fully shut them down.
There's a lot. Same as when you play against Sentinels, I guess.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's important to not get overrun by CNET, and after that, you can play the game in a way where it's not You also, one thing that we have to take into account is that you can't plan everything around him, because then the other 4 players that they have will pop off against you as well. You need to have a plan where you're just solid and you play well. You don't have to counter him directly. It has to be a plan, a general plan. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to counter CNET specifically. Because then Sideshow will pop off.
Or Zeke is going to destroy.
Or Zeke is going to destroy. Or you need to have a good overall plan to beat ACEND. That we didn't have last time. We played ACEND. We won one map rushing everything. We didn't play it in a tactical way. And the other 2 maps, we were trying to play well without having anything. We got completely destroyed. So now that we have time to prepare, it's going to be a different match. Much more closer for sure. And they will get better as well. So it's going to be a really good match to watch.
We've been talking a lot about G2 being a new roster. You absolutely are. ACEND have a big advantage there in terms of their core being together for a long time, and a lot of the structure that Coldamenta set up is already, in place, and Bone Cold now has, an easier time of it because he's not trying to build a team right from the ground floor again. How long do you think it's going to be before you're able to compete with ACEND for the title and winning tournaments? Because if it is a factor of time, from your internal point of view, how much time do you think it's going to be? Like, are you going to be there by the time it gets to Berlin? Are we going to see like G2 at their peak by then? Or is this a longer term thing where you think, okay, well, maybe we'll be a little bit behind an ACEND or a Sentinels when it gets to Berlin, but we're going to be ahead of them by champions. What in your heads is the timeline for this team?
It's hard to tell when exactly. I think that, first of all, we want to qualify to Berlin. I don't care about being first or winning this qualifier. I just want to qualify to Berlin and play on LAN. I feel like this team would benefit a lot from playing on LAN because we have a lot of players that played a lot compared to the other teams. So my focus is to qualify to Berlin, then go to Berlin, and after the time we had to practice, just win the event. That's what I want to do.
Mm.
I don't care about being first in the EMEA qualifiers. I care about qualifying, and then on Berlin we will show how good we are.
I think the same.
Yeah, mirrored.
I think it's LAN. It's just LAN we need, and we need to prove that we can play good on LAN, and then from there, like the first LAN is gonna be a bit stressful, I think, for everybody, because I haven't been to a LAN 2 in a long time. Same goes for Oscar. I think once the first LAN is out of like the thing, it's gonna be easier to work from that. I think we're gonna be somewhat ready during the bootcamp and before EMEA, and after the EMEA, it's gonna be like the final steps we need to see if we're good enough for Berlin or whatever.
Mm. You're talking about a boot camp. What's the plan there? What's going on with that?
We're going from the 1st of August to the 23rd. So we're gonna play the whole qualifier. Yeah. And we're gonna play the whole qualifier from there. We have a few days to work before that. And if we qualify to Berlin, we will go back to our homes and then come back to bootcamp again before Berlin as well. So yeah, we're focusing. Our whole life is Valorant right now.
Yeah, that is intense. I mean, normally people bootcamp for like, I don't know, a week, 10 days, something like that before the tournament. That's a full 3 weeks that you're bootcamping. That's kind of wild. That's going to be a big shift for everybody as well.
If we didn't qualify, we would have probably stayed at bootcamp for like a month and a half to play the last chance qualifier and then EMEA and whatever from bootcamp. Would have been even worse.
He's really happy.
Like I was really happy because I don't want to go to bootcamp for like more than 10 days, like you said. You know?
Yeah.
Like I would 10 days, it's okay. Because I'm pretty terrible experience from the past regarding bootcamps and whatever.
What is the experience level of the other players on your team? I know that keloqz is fairly new. I don't actually know about Avova and in terms of what his experience level is, or KoldrMenta in terms of like LAN experience, big games, stuff like that. Are you aware? Like, do you have confidence in these guys that they're going to be able to perform, or do they need some experience and time?
KoldrMenta has more experience than Avova. KoldrMenta was living in Berlin actually, playing the Pro League in PUBG, so he had to play on stage every week.
Right.
So he is used to it. And Avova just played every LAN in Denmark. He wasn't like a tier 1 player in CS:GO, but he had a lot of LAN experience. It's not the same, but it's better than nothing for sure.
Yeah, and Berlin is going to be very different to Reykjavik as well if you manage to make it, because I believe there's going to be a live crowd compared to Reykjavik. I'm not sure about that. I mean, obviously COVID restrictions could change everything involved, but if that ends up happening, that creates a very different dynamic to Reykjavik, where they were essentially just playing in a warehouse. I mean, at that point, I don't even really know whether it feels like the same kind of LAN environment, the same kind of pressure on you, compared to, you know, Champions at the end of the year where it's happening in LA and everyone's expecting there to be thousands of people in the crowd. That's a very, very different experience.
For sure. It's the same. Like if you go to a LAN and you play with no crowd, it's like playing at a boot camp. Exactly, it's the same. Yeah. So I hope there is a crowd, and I hope that we are there playing for sure.
What do you think? What do you think about the CIS and Turkish scenes as well? Because they're going to be part of the EMEA qualifiers. They're going to be competing with you guys to go to Berlin, or against you guys rather than with you guys. You're saying that Sened's potentially the best player in the world right now. He's obviously a Turkish player, comes from the Turkish scene, and there's a bunch of cracked players in that region, though they didn't perform up to their expectations, I would say, when it came to the previous EMEA finals. Are there teams there that you've got a lot of respect for? I know there's like a new Turkish super team, Supermassive Blaze and Gambit, Na'Vi people are talking about. Are those on your radar as challengers alongside people like ACEND, Fnatic, FPX, that kind of thing?
Gambit is everyone says it as well. A Gambit on practice is the best team in the world. Yep. Like I got destroyed since the beta until now. They practice really well. Like the scrims against them are super difficult, and if they play at the same level as they practice, they are a great team, to be honest.
If they don't choke.
Yeah. The rest of the teams are all really good. I think the Turkish scene is kind of. You don't know who's gonna qualify, to be honest. They They have a lot of good teams. None of them is really a clear favorite. It's weird. BBL lost really easily today, for example.
Yeah,
Right.
that was really interesting to see.
Yeah. So I don't know what to expect from Turkey. I think Navi has a good team. But Gambit is, for me, the hardest one.
Okay.
By far.
What I want to return a little bit to this idea of the challenger teams that you're going to be attempting to qualify to Berlin for. What's going on with Fnatic and Liquid from your point of view? The world has its eyes on those two teams because those were the teams that made it to Reykjavik. So those were the teams that EMEA had representing them at the only world championship kind of thing that we've had so far. The only title that was Europe against everybody else. Fnatic and Liquid have now not qualified the first time around for Challengers Finals, for EMEA Finals. So they've they have to go through a second qualifier now, up against other genuinely good teams that might end up upsetting them. What do you think is the difference here between their ability to be able to get to Reykjavik and now these kind of runs? Is it that EU is way more competitive this time around, or are they not playing as well? I know, Mixwell, that you were saying Fnatic in particular you didn't think was quite up to the same level, but why is that?
I have really specific things to say, but I don't know if I should go into so much detail.
Fair.
I don't want to help them. But I feel like I feel like Fnatic had a really clear plan before during the Reykjavik period of time, and after that, I think they felt like they had to change stuff because we could counter them because we had a lot of matches to watch. And a lot of teams were new, so they didn't know anything about them. So they were in a disadvantaged position. So they were not playing the same way as before. They had to relearn a lot of stuff. I think Boaster micromanages a lot his team. He has a lot of weight on his shoulders. But I still think that they are a great team, to be honest. I think they are better than Liquid right now.
I agree to that. Yeah.
I think Fnatic is going to qualify. I think they will do really well, and I still rate them highly. Liquid, I think that their problem is that they change roles all the time. They don't really know how to approach the game since they don't have an IGL. Zlygi must be doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And mid-round, they are a worse team than Fnatic, for example. Mid-round, you can clearly see that they don't have a dedicated IGL. And if Scream is not having a good day, things look really rough, especially on T side. Oh, on attacking side, sorry.
Yeah. Is that the same kind of stuff, Nukkye?
Yeah, that's pretty much the same. Because it's like, I feel like Fnatic is more stable than Liquid because of their lack of IGL in the team. Man, I don't think like the coach is like good enough just to do all the homework and then they call like a default and it's gonna work, Like you still need a guy that's gonna call mid-round really good, which is Boaster. I feel like he's doing a really good job regarding that thing.
Yeah. Are they? Would you consider them still locks to be able to make it to EMEA? Do you think that they're favorites to make it out of this second qualifier?
For me, I would bet 99% that they will qualify.
Same.
Fnatic 99%, Liquid I don't think they will. I
think Vitality is going to be the second team that's going to qualify.
Who, sorry?
Vitality.
Oh, Vitality. Yeah.
I think it's either them or who else is there. Wait, there's a lot of teams. There's like
there was Giants going on a bit of a run recently with David P of former G2 fame as well. So they had a bit of a tear in the end of that qualifier and looked relatively decent.
When they announced it, I was in a Spanish talk show and I said that I think they are really good pickups because David P is really good at mid-round calling, really good. One of the best teammates I had in that aspect. And Ambi, we tried him out in G2 and I liked him a lot as well. He's a good guy, he has a good skill and he talks a lot as well. So they were both really good pickups, and I knew that they could do good stuff. I didn't expect them to do so well, though. They did better, even more than what I was expecting.
Expectations.
But they were what they needed, I feel. People that talk and have ideas. Because before Giants was a team where it was easy to read, Now it's harder.
Right. I want to get your predictions as well on who actually ends up going to Berlin. I believe there's, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. I think there's 3. Wait, is there 4 EMEA spots to go to Berlin?
I think there's 3.
I think it's 3, right? I've forgotten the format. It's so fucking complicated. But I think that, yeah, I think it's 3. I think you're right. That end up going to Berlin. If we assume, okay, G2, they're able to qualify, you guys are going to Berlin, you make it out of the EMEA finals, who would you expect to be those other 2 teams that end up going with you?
ACEND and Fnatic.
Yeah, same.
Same?
Not even a question. I feel like it's 100% ACEND and Fnatic.
But it could also be FPX if they finally play to their full potential, and it can...
Oh, there are 4, actually. Sorry, our producer just pulled it up. There are 4 spots, so...
better.
Yep, okay, even better. Well, you've got another name then to throw into the hat.
Yeah, I think FPX or even Guild, to be honest, if they get better than the tournament, if they get better than the qualifier, Guild could make it as well.
Mm. Do you interpret this Fnatic dip as just being, you know, a short-term thing then, that they're easily going to be able to rectify? Sounds like you both have a lot of confidence still in the roster.
I saw their change since they started boot camping on practice, and they're already much better than the qualifiers. So
Yep.
I expect them to win, qualify, and then fight against ACEND, us, and FPX, and Guild, and all those teams.
There's Gambit as well, yeah, who could still make a run.
Gambit could make it as well. I forgot about them.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be a very tough qualifier. I mean, there are 4 spots, so you've still got a pretty decent chance of being able to make it through. But yeah, the field is stacked. It definitely is. If you had one of the other teams to pose as like, okay, if we aren't able to win Berlin, then they'll be able to do it. You know, if G2 can't take down Sentinels, then X team is going to be able to do it at Berlin. Who do you think would be the team? Like, who would you put your stocks in if you guys fell early?
No one.
You think it's just you or bust?
I think so, yeah. That's what I feel. I think Sentinels is a really strong team.
Yeah, I want to say the same thing.
You need to be really prepared mentally. You need to react to certain stuff in game fast. You need to have players that can play under pressure. You need to have a lot of those things that I don't know if the other teams have. But yeah, I think us, to be honest. ACEND could do it if they play the same way as they do it online, but it's a different thing to play in such a... because if you compare the experience of Sentinels against ACEND, is huge.
It's like massive.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well so go on, Nukkye, go on.
I've been going on this rant that like I feel that like in ACEND, I don't think they're gonna play that good on LAN, and I feel like CNET is not gonna play as good as he's playing online. I feel like he's really comfortable at home and he's performing to his max. And when he's gonna be seeing the crowd and he's not even streaming with the camera. That says a lot to me, you know. Like he's not comfortable at people watching him, you know, play like thousands. Like he's one of the biggest streamers in Turkey, and he's like constantly getting watched by like 10,000 people, but he's not even streaming with the camera, which shows his confidence, you know. Like he's like he might be just a really good online player, and he's one of the best right now, which is really important for the qualifiers. But when it comes to LAN, will he be this good? That's like my biggest question, which I want them to qualify. I want to see him play in LAN. Them failing and not coming to it, and then he becomes like he's gonna destroy the qualifiers again because he's really good.
Sure.
And it's like rinse and repeat, you know, like he plays really good online and they never make it to anywhere, and then it's like
yeah. Valorant's in a weird spot. I mean, all of esports is in a weird spot at the moment because there's so many online tournaments and so few LANs. But it does seem like we're getting more towards the LAN environment where that becomes a really valued factor, is how can you actually perform when the pressure is on and when you end up performing at LAN. But you've set lofty expectations for yourselves there. Both of your answers are like, okay, well, the hopes of EU are resting on G2's shoulders. No one else can do it except us. So I hope you're able to perform under that.
Like that. It's not like that. I just feel like Sentinels is such a good team.
Sure.
You need to have what you need to have to beat them. It's that doesn't mean maybe none of the teams I said will qualify. You never know. Europe is super stacked.
Yeah.
Like maybe we don't even win a single game, which I doubt, but it could happen as well.
Yeah.
You never know. But I trust that we will. and I think we have what we need to beat them. Like,
Mhm.
it's not that I say it to share false hope or something like that. I truly mean it. I truly think that
Or just having a big ego or something, you know? Like
No,
saying that we're the
it's
best.
not about ego. It's not about ego.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I do appreciate that, and I wish you all the best in terms of the qualifiers as well. I've been enjoying watching your team play and develop over time. It seems like the squad has a lot of potential. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate the interview very much, and it's great to hear from you. And thanks for coming on again, Nukkye, as well.
Thank you for the
It
invitation.
was really fun. Thank you so much.
All right, and subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, stuff like that, and you'll be able to catch further episodes of BACKCHAT. I know that we've been pumping them out at a weird rate recently, but we'll also have our main episode going out every Wednesday as usual as well. So catch that when it happens. See you then.